Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Generation AI Live. I'm Artist Kadu, and I have my wonderful co-host JC Bonilla here with me today.
Hello,
JC?
everybody. How's everyone doing today? Audio coming in good, artists. You can hear me well. This
Yes,
thing is
yes.
telling me I'm muted, but the fact that you can hear me, that means that this is going through in a live session on a Friday morning after 9,000 calories of candy. My goodness, I'm ready to go. How was
Yeah.
your post Halloween recovery?
This was this was an interesting Halloween because my kids actually just went trick or treating with their cousins,
Mm.
so I had an easy evening. So uh, actually, it was too quiet.
Too quiet, too quiet. Look, I'm in the part of Brooklyn that you don't hit the houses, you actually hit the commerce. And all these bars have stands for kids and adult candy. So the game for
Mm.
parents and trick or treating is the best. It's just that the calorie intake is more liquid
I
than
mean,
solid candy. But everybody, before we go into this important topic, please explain this to me, artist. How can a 3-year-old consume 12 lollipops, about seven Tootsie Rolls, and every M&M available? It's like incredible. My daughter had 34 different units because we couldn't keep, like, whatever you call it. How can little humans do that? It's incredible.
they can just burn it off. I wish I could do that for sure.
Yeah. And then I had the bedtime routine. It was crazy. Speaking of crazy, we wanted to do this live episode to unpack one of the most interesting things that we have been observing out of the massive drop of AI technology, displacement. These guys have a better model. But what we saw this week, literally, it's AI powered search making a gigantic dent in terms of technology displacements, advancements, and what we think is a game changing conversation. Therefore, we're having a live conversation. Therefore, we're going to have some experts and friends joining us soon because what artists and I want to do is unpack what generative AI search is and how Google, OpenAI, and Meta literally told us this week, hello, I am here and I'm here to play ball, hard ball. So, artists, are you excited about the episode and you want to get us started on what this means and AI power search? What is that thing, man?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for for quite a bit now for AI parsers. So if you haven't been following Generation AI, we talk about this during our episode 9 when we talk about the future of online search. We talk about keywords, moving from keywords to conversations. So how the behavior has been was changing. This was a year ago when the behavior we saw changing from people actually going to ChatGPT to get their information rather than going to Google. And then on episode 22, we talked about how what would happen if we took Google's information or your own information, and then we took this generative AI stuff and kind of made a love child of it. And it's like how you can revolutionize. And we talked about how we're bringing that to Element and what the infrastructure is there. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, go back to them because they give you a lot of context around the changes. And now we're a year later, and we're actually seeing these changes. We're seeing the drop of ChatGPT search in everybody. So if you haven't looked at ChatGPT search, I'm going to share my screen here just so we can take a look at that. And but before we do that, I was going to let's set the context first, and then invite our guest in just a couple of minutes. So
Yes,
let me
exactly. Context.
yeah. So
While
let me
artist sets this up, I just want to remind everybody that always being nice in the right side of history, and this is just confirmation that we have been telling you this is forthcoming. 2 episodes fully dedicated to it, and it's always nice. So,
yeah.
artist, what do we have
Yeah.
on screen now?
So this is OpenAI essentially yesterday introducing Chat GPT Search, and Chat GPT Search is now a new feature that you see. For example, here on when you go to Chat GPT, you have the ability to automatically turn on search, and they will go in and pull in live sources of information from different places. So you can turn this on manually, or if ChatGPT understands that it needs to go out and pull some information, you'll do that automatically. But this is live info, right? So this is not just what it was doing before. It's more like the UI and the usability and the UX is very different, and that's where we kind of invite our guest in around that. Um, but in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other things that kind of go dovetail with this. This has been a crazy week where Meta has also introduced or
Hmm.
talked about developing an AI search engine to lessen their reliance on Google and Microsoft. We've seen Perplexity introduce a whole bunch of stuff, including things like spaces around their product. So if you're a Perplexity fan, we'll take a look at that. And then last but not least, Gemini, the API in Google Studio, now they offer, and this was yesterday as well, they offer grounding with Google search, meaning that if you're using their AI, if you're using Gemini, now you have the ability to, when you ask a question, you can turn on and the Google search will power some of that Gen AI answers that you're getting in real time. So you no longer have to think about your when was the last time these models were trained and what information do they have in there. This is coming in live. So with all of those pieces, I want to focus on the Chat GPT specifically, and then we'll see how this new interface and how this new mode will move forward. But I want to invite um, one of our friends that Tai Fujimura. He does a lot of work on the product side of Element, and Tai is also an expert in SEO and has a marketing agency that does a lot of these front end hospitality, as they as they call them. So I'm gonna stop my screen sharing and see if I can add Ty to this conversation. Hey Ty, how's it going?
Hello. What an honor to be on with you and
Ty in the is that a mobile office, Ty? Is that what's
it
happening
is.
here?
It is.
Look at
Yeah.
you,
Well,
Ty.
yeah, forgive me for my unprofessional setting here, but
Ah, no,
I hope
by
to
no
bring the
means.
heat regardless of context.
We appreciate you making the time, my friend. Artist and I planned this 90 days ago. That was exactly when it happens. We're going to do a live session. So thank you for just basically jumping in on the 11th hour and helping us ground this conversation.
Well, at the speed that AI moves, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
So that's one lesson I think we've all learned.
So for those of you who do not know Ty, right, and you can see that in his title. He is one of the brains behind the scenes, or probably the inspirational brain on this incredible user experience and design features that the product Element has. I've been working with Ty for quite some time, and I would say that when artists and I starting to think about how machine learning, that kind of first generation of AI, needed to be deployed in our users, Ty was a person who actually humanizes that. And if it was for people like Ty, I think artists is good at this, but someone like me would end up with things that nobody uses, things that maybe are very powerful, but at the end of the day, you are one of the professionals that puts technology into adoption using forcing functions of design, behavior, and things of that sort. So, Ty, is that a fair introduction of your some of your superpowers,
That's
my friend?
that's a wonderful introduction and a great honor. Yeah, so as artists alluded to, my long-term background is running a web design agency, and I've increasingly come more prominently into the fold on the element side. And my philosophy around technology has always been that it is for people. It's a tool for people to
Hmm.
actually get some sort of benefit in the real world. So I think as technologists, we lose our way when we're just focused on the feature and we're just focused on the power of the tool. So that has absolutely been a part of my role working with artists who's also excellent at this to figure out, okay, we have all of these capabilities in this new AI space. How do we actually bring it to people in a way where it affects their life in a positive direction?
Love that. Um, Artists, I
All right,
think maybe a good
let's
way to
let's
get us started in this convo is
yeah.
just basically remind everybody what generative AI search could look like and the
Mhm.
three specific improvements. I love time for you to add beef on this. Again, we spoke about this in prior episodes, but we're talking about three specific things that makes this search in the light of AI. The introduction of natural language understanding, a query that is basically what I call hand waves, right? I can use my hands to explain something. So now using
You don't need
text, it doesn't,
keywords anymore.
I don't
Yep.
need keywords, right? Um, Complex, the complexity of how we speak, it's actually something that an algorithm is able to understand. Number two, personalization. One of your sweet spots are these in Thai, right? That in that search, the input and the output, it's contextual to who I am as a person, where I'm at, and adapts to location, device, previous interactions, and all that stuff. Memory. I always give this example, right? Hit me up with things in the morning or at night, because in the middle of the day I don't have time. I'm in meetings. I'm doing all this type of things. So as a consumer, if you figure that out, it's a game changer. And last thing, this idea of rich results and features. Think about how knowledge panels, voice activation, fundamentally changing the way information is accessed, multimodal and whatnot. All those things are being introduced. So, artists, Ty, where are you at with these three prawns? And is there a fourth prawn that you think is important for us to talk about?
Don't all jump in at once. I'll jump in.
Yeah, you lead off, artists.
The Where we are right now. So let me put a little bit more context around this, because there's been a transformation in terms of the way we think about um, it's all about information discovery, right? Or information or knowledge, and how do you find information. So this idea of how you find information and how you discover stuff, that's changed over time. As many of you know, or as we worked on the world of website building, it used to be that
Mhm.
your navigation of your website was how you found things. So you had organizational taxonomies, and you had organization around very similar to like pages and books and library type mechanisms. So library science was really important. And in the old days, libraries actually were owning the websites in universities and in other places. So this idea that you can organize information in pages and have that hierarchical information be available. That was the first wave of how do you find information, right? And you had to put everything in there. The second part happened when like search became really important. So now there's an abundance of information, but it just became really, really overwhelming. So Google came around and is they found a really, really interesting way of how to find relevant information and surface that. And it was based on how do you link things together and kind of relevancy and what information was more important than others. So they owned that whole system. And that's when search engine optimization came about, where now rather than for example, rather than the author having the ability to dictate how to make that website relevant and organize the information, the consumer had the power to find information the way they wanted. So they type keywords and they can go directly to that page without going through your navigation. So search engine optimization became really important, because now you get rid of the navigation on how you want people to see, so they can enter through your back door. If you take the analogy of, let's say, a house or a building or a hotel or whatever, it's like now the person can enter through your kitchen, for example, and then you were like, whoa, 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 I want you to have this very nice experience through my homepage, but then the kitchen and those they're very messy, so there's not enough stuff there. Now Google allowed you to actually go directly to that content, so they empowered people. So everybody's like, holy shit, we need to figure out how to get people there, because most of the traffic and the consumer behavior, you go to
Sure.
Google, you type what you want, you even type the brand, you go to their website. So that has been kind of over the past decade, SEO has been really, really important. And this is a topic that I would like to discuss. Maybe Ty can jump in a little bit more around how this changes that SEO. But now what we're seeing with the introduction of ChatGPT and this natural language approach, it becomes a lot easier for people to ask a question and then get a response without having to get the links back. And
But
that's a
look,
behavior that ChatGPT had of it.
but look, what artist is talking about, fascinating. And of course, in the disciplines of information retrieval, discovery, and whatnot, and as we give this kind of layup to you, Ty, what artists explain, from my point of view, it's always these improvements on the back end of how search takes place. And I was telling artists this morning, I just find it fascinating that today, right, good old search looks the way search was being done in 1995 via Netscape. So as we have improved on the back end and how these SEO and things like that have place, I find that there's been a static aspect of how we still visualize and consume that. So, Ty, what do you say about all these different threats, my friend?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Those great thoughts. And so what we're seeing is that essentially the reason that search existed was because there was a felt human need, which is to go through this immense volume of information that's on the
Hmm.
internet and quickly sort it and ascertain what's relevant and the best answer to what you're trying to do. And so now with generative AI, we have an entirely new way to do that. And what it's ended up doing is kind of flipping the process, where previously it was a self-directed thing where you're using a search engine as an intermediary to get between to guide your personal browsing of all of these resources. Now we have machines that are much better at doing that step of the process for us and reporting back to us what's out there, what's the lay of the land. So as a if you're a organization that has a website, most do, you need to be aware and prepared for the change in how users are going to discover your website and the role that your website plays in feeding large language models, which is just as important now as
Hmm.
users actually receiving your content within your website itself.
Right. So let's dive deep. Let's go into that a little bit more. A lot of people are like, well, I've invested so much in my website and the experience, and everybody has those amazing, videos that play the video overlays, and everybody's website redesign has this great graphics. What happens now?
But wait, and the reason why that's important, right, and how it works is because the monetization of it has been, you find me, right, in a place like Google, so that I can link to, right, and end up in these beautiful websites that artists just basically
Mhm.
have described and I've invested on. So what happens now, right?
Right.
Is that changing, and where are we going with this?
Yeah, that is 100% changing. So websites as a whole will most likely see less traffic in the next, 1, 3, 5 years than they did previously. Now that
Ty,
doesn't
come on, this is the AI age. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month.
right. Who knows? We could all be working for robots at the end of this, but yeah, I'm not. I can't say 5 years, but maybe in 6 months,
Yeah.
let's say.
The
Uh,
point it the point is it is happening. It's happening soon.
the point is,
Sorry.
this is
Keep
happening.
going. Yeah.
So website traffic,
Hmm.
users hitting your site will go down as these tools get more prominent. Now that sounds like it could be a bad thing for your organization, but keep in mind that the visitors who are going to be finding your website are the ones who have already done that first phase research, that like exploratory discovery type research.
Right.
Right.
So now they're coming to your website to get the authentic, direct message and experience from you.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
I like that word
An
authentic.
answer, and answers too, right?
What?
Like they're
yeah,
trying to
and
get the
specific
yeah.
answers. Yeah, exactly. Because AI is amazing at generalizing and giving you a good broad picture of things.
Summaries.
Not, yeah, summaries, but it's not very good at giving you a sort of bespoke experience. That's not what it's designed to do. It's an aggregate. It's well, it can be, but these tools are not. So what I certainly advocate for website owners is to emphasize the human experience that you're delivering within your website, because the web is an incredibly malleable and flexible tool that can integrate interactive tools and media like you were alluding to. So you have the ability with a website to create whatever experience AI cannot create at that moment, whether that's right now or 5 years down the line. So the AI tools are going to be able to, probably solve many users' needs. And that's a good thing, because you can be there to solve that last need that's not solved well through AI, or to deliver an experience that transcends what someone is seeing through AI. And
Mm.
that might be your kind of closer to
Hey,
your
Ty, this is
prospect
very
relationships.
interesting. Very interesting point here. Can you elaborate a bit on authentic? Let me give you where my head went when you use the word authentic, right? Because who knows, right? And these chapters are being written, so I may be totally off. I may be totally right. The proxy I have of authenticity emerges from social media, TikTok, right, where all of a sudden
Yep.
it's pushing these curated social ads that are done with, oh, look at my, I can see my girl. Anyway, you can look, you that will cost you 30 cents, and they have the impact of $100 million ad, Super Bowl type of thing, right? So authentic means raw. Authentic means so many things that in the concept of productization that is more stylized and curated, my brain really has a construct. So can you educate me on what authenticity could look like? Because my brain went to TikTok and people dancing and doing things in a really, really social media way.
Right, right. So I think there's sort of a dark and inauthentic aspect to what social media has brought, but I think there's also a very human aspect. If you look at a medium like TikTok, it democratizes how people can
Sure.
interact with each other. It makes it so that there's no gatekeeper. So someone who has a original, creative, funny, interesting idea can bring that to people, and everybody can kind of find their niche. And I think
Hmm.
there's an analog in what we're going to see with the web. All of that like basic stuff is going to be abstracted away. So I think what you will still see on the web as being effective is human connection and some ability to directly interface with a user. And like I was saying at the start, trying to help them along in their day, like giving them some sort of tool that
Fair,
they don't otherwise have, or some experience they couldn't otherwise have. So I
fair.
think you want to
So
move the web away from being a means of conveying the facts and into a way of giving people a feeling, giving people an emotional response. So in the context of higher ed, it it really amps up that aspect of a university website, which has to give people that sense of what it's like on campus. What is the character of this institution? What is it like to actually be there? Those things are not going to come through very well on the AI side, and you can kind of humanize and make your website much more emotional in order to make it effective.
So I would actually argue. So one thing. So if you look at, yes, the AI in the way that it is presented right now, you ask a question, and let's actually do that live right now as we're going through this.
You're
So
bringing
one thing,
ChatGPT search?
Yeah.
yeah, let's
Okay,
do
super.
let's do one.
While artist brings that up, so you do still need facts on your website. Let's be clear, but the way those facts are going to be found and consumed and
Yeah.
utilized will change, which we can
S-
discuss.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna search the web, and we're gonna turn this thing on, and let's say who has the best uh, data science masters
In the US.
program in US. Okay, so let's do that. So right now,
By the way,
um,
notice how in the search query there were things like us, so is it me, where's it no? So in the sense of location already translated us
yeah,
as US, the country
US,
one. And
yeah,
so that in itself, it's very hard to do. And it was fascinating. So artists, thank you for your rapid type into demo some of the sophisticated things here. Go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, my misspellings. I do that all the time, so don't worry. So
Misspelling is a problem that is being solved, but that was different. Go ahead.
it's been solved for sure. So
Yeah.
here's what it did, right? So we went ahead and look at where it pulled this information. It said there's several, but Harvard University provides the data science. Um, there is also information coming from a different place here. Best data science programs. So these are college transitions. So it seems like these college transitions, and then Wikipedia is down here as well. So it kind of put them together. Oh, New York University's Center for Data Science, JC.
There
That's
you
in
go.
here as well. So there we go.
So,
Yes.
so what we're seeing, right, is with the query that it was somewhat imperfect. It knows how to give you a
Yeah.
response, and it
Yeah.
creates a
It's
collage of information retrieval. Whereas the current search experience would have list, I guess, in this case, four. I don't know how many sources are here. Four. Is that four links, and I have to link out.
yes.
Here, it synthetically produces a summary for you to the
Yeah.
point that Ty is saying is this is basically the entry point, and then I can in this experience I can click through, and then I end up in the different sources for my second part of the journey, right? So what we're seeing are these some of the
But
features.
but this so look at, I mean, I want to highlight. So this is a little bit different, right? So this is this experience in here. Um, so I can say, give me a map,
Yeah, I was gonna go there. Yeah.
and now I believe it's going to pull in all of the.
In a month, it'll give you an actual map.
So they have. I thought the map is already in here.
Yeah,
I the
little
map I think is more on Gemini, and how they're doing some of the things in mapping. I think, but as you're trying to do these examples, what we're seeing, right, is this idea that is organized and summarized search results, right? And on the second query that you did, it starts including visual artifacts in the answer, right? When you say give me a map, it shows a selection of things. Um, artists, how conversational is this? Can you? One of the features are conversational interfaces. What does that mean in terms of search? Is this idea that I can code deeper? How would you start making this a more conversational experience? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the conversational experience here is that you're actually, it's keeping the context of where you are of
Exactly.
that first question or that first. So it's a
Hmm.
thread. So you're now not moving
It's a
away. So it's
dialogue.
keeping the
Mhm.
exactly. So it's a thread. Whatever you asked before is going to influence kind of the direction of other things that you ask. So you understand. So now if I say, how about outside of US, it's going to understand that it's data science that I'm looking for, right? Um, you see, like again, top tier masters in data science. Like I didn't ask that for that, but it's the
Mm.
same context, just like you use regular Chat GPT. So this is changing, right? As your research. Now we had this a while back with Perplexity, and the reason why we're talking about this is because these are big players with a lot of user base, and they really change behavior. So they change behavior on our searches, they change behavior on how we consume information. So when they're at the 100, 200, 300 million people daily usage, that means that if they introduce a different way of doing something, it's going to change the behavior. I still prefer Perplexity right now, because I can go into Perplexity and I can say, I can ask the same question. And then Perplexity actually does a little bit more. You can see over here how it's thinking. It pulled together the search, it broke it down by best data science program rankings. It understands the queries and how it's doing that, and then it's identifying the
Mhm.
sources that it's pulling stuff from. So it's doing a little bit more, and visually, this is much nicer than what I saw before, and it's actually giving me in rank order. You know, so the UX matters here a lot on how we're now. So we don't care about text anymore, but essentially we're getting interfaces that are live interfaces, and when I can go and ask them, I can do follow-up questions, and the Perplexity
Yeah.
does that for you. So they don't have the availability, or they don't have the usage base of a chat
But
GPT, but they still have, I would say they're winning in the interface world right now for sure.
isn't it true that Perplexity has a lag from real-time data? So they're not querying today, all right? Or is it
No, they
24
are.
hours? It is a
Yeah.
real-time
Yeah,
information
they're
sources?
it's real time, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
essentially all of these companies, what they're doing, if I go, are you guys so oh, you guys
I'm
didn't
doing.
tell me that I wasn't sharing my Perplexity screen. So this is
Oh,
what
I
I
didn't.
did the search.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did the
I did
search
not
on
know. I did not know
Perplexity.
you were doing that.
Um,
So.
I was sorry about that. So I was doing the same thing on Perplexity. Who was the best data science? So what he did, it's actually went out and he pulled all of the like it did. It broke down the searches. It gave me the sources, and it gives me in a rank format. It's a little bit better interface, right? I would say a lot nicer than the Chat GPT one right now. But again, this is kind of where these players are going to go. It's like, how do you provide a better interface? How do you provide a better experience? And then
Hmm.
what Perplexity has offered is things like I can now convert this to a page, right? So if I go ahead and I convert this to a page, best data science master's program in the US, and you can see this turned into a page that you can say, oh, this is an SEO ready page, or this is content that I would have written and done my research, and an SEO writer could have done all this work. Now Perplexity is actually converting that. So my belief is that what we're seeing here is a real-time dynamic generation of content based on the context and the questions that you need at that time. So, what Ty mentioned about authenticity and kind of the brand, that's not going to be on your website anymore. That is actually going to be on social, because that's where people's attention is going to be. So the sources of your brand and where you need to put your personality and everything else, it's going to be on social. From social, you're going to drive them to your website in order to get this personalized information that they're looking for. So websites will become very shallow in terms of the navigation and the information, in terms of the experience. They might have a a home page plus maybe a couple of few, landing pages, but within that, they're going to have an engine that personalizes the answers in real time, depending on who that student is or who that visitor is, and builds and writes and designs it in real time to something very similar to this, right? And that's my prediction.
Mhm.
Obviously, behind the scenes, you're going to have massive data and knowledge that needs to be pulled in to do that, but that is not designed information. It's just the source, and then the experience will be dynamic. So we no
Mhm.
longer have thousands of pages. We just have two or three, and then those pages are dynamic depending on the user's answers or questions.
Yeah.
So
I would actually, because we're close to this half hour here, and want to be between 30 and 40 minutes for all of you who are listening. Love for you, Ty, to kind of do a little bit of this prediction aspect here. So whatever our how artist just basically presented his counter of technology, where he's going. Can you also react to the following, right? It is obviously a competitive landscape, and then what artist just did is look, Perplexity is, in my opinion, a bit more ahead. But what we're seeing this week is that huge drop from OpenAI. They're in the game. Meta, right? That would probably integrate with their products, obviously, Instagram, WhatsApp,
social,
and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah,
But in Google, right, via Gemini, trying to make this whole claim, right, that as the, you know, 1,000 pound gorilla on search, we're here, and it's about grounding, which everybody, when we think about grounding, think about the difference of giving you guesstimations versus a specific answer, right? And that's what, in a really cool way, this does. And the last point for before we go to Utah, all these experiences very clean, ad free, right? Ad free. Where do
Today.
you think this is going, right? Because Facebook had the same thing when they went public, ad free, and then today the experience, we know that is basically they need to monetize and it changes.
it's
So
crazy.
what's, yeah, where's your head going with all these things, Ty?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, briefly on the advertising thing, certainly the way that the industry will go is to allow advertisers to influence the results, which will look like it will not look like traditional advertising. It will look more like a
Mm,
sort of way to tweak and affect the answers that are given in certain directions, which is, that's terrifying in some ways, but that's likely where this is going to head. So be aware of that. In the meantime, we live in this, like you said, like a pre-ad world of purely organic AI, where the AI is going to be intending to provide neutral, unbiased answers as a website owner. So I mentioned that there's this whole aspect where you need to be delivering a experience. As artist said, it's a shallow experience where it might be immersive, it might be media rich. You do not have to have the same, content structure the way that you used to. Your website also does have a huge role, because when an LLM is looking for information about
Right.
your product or service, it's going to ingest your website as a primary source. it's going to also be skeptical to some extent of the claims that are on your website. But that makes it even more important to have that message be really refined and tuned and accurate. So on your website, that's where you need to focus the most attention on making sure that whatever you want an LLM to say about your niche, you say on your website. Because if you look at those, the way that ChatGPT Search pulls in those sources, or the way that Perplexity has those little citations, it may literally quote the language from your website. So if you have a particular phraseology or way that you put your brand and position in the market, make sure that's really clear and used prominently, because if it is done in a genuine and honest way, an LLM is likely to actually use that from time to time.
Right.
So you're not just being supplanted by these AI technologies. They're reliant on you to provide the content that they're going to stitch together into these summaries, and that's a key play that I don't see a lot of marketers aware of and talking about. So that's a huge opportunity for anybody who can kind of be, leapfrog within their niche, especially in higher ed where things tend to move very slowly.
Love that.
So I do have a question. Like, so what happens to SEO? Like, where do they find? How do they know how to rank this content
How-
against you? You have a data science page. Thousands of schools have data science pages. Let's say hundreds of schools.
To
So
your
how
point,
do they
in the
pick
prior
which data
query,
science?
how
Yeah,
how did it know to put NYU at the bottom
right.
versus MIT at the top?
Yeah. Well, so I think you need to be in the inner workings of some of these firms in order to know exactly what these algorithms are doing in order to make those decisions. But I think it's clear to say when you look at the sources in that first search you did, it was a blend between neutral, journalistic, top 10 type of lists and actual university websites. So it's safe to say that a blanket strategy where you're trying almost as like a PR move to uh, broadly address the market with your message is going to work well, because you're then affecting how your brand and niche are spoken about across a lot of different channels, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you speak at a conference, maybe you do a podcast interview, maybe you write guest blog posts, maybe you have a independent website that you write for, or a Medium or a Substack, whatever it is. So if you have that kind of diversification and you have the relationships where you can sort of not like influence in a negative way, but just kind of participate in whenever someone's talking about your niche, that's going to really help you. The more you're mentioned, the better things are going to work out for you. And specifically, if you can affect how you're mentioned, then that's even better.
That's
Isn't
with
it
the
true
assumption
that
that the LLM favors ranking as we know it, right? Because in a way you're reacting to this diversification of content is how in SEO you go higher in a rank, correct?
Well, in SEO, the game is all about specific optimization around specific terms that users may think of when they try to search for your niche. And that's
right?
another thing that's very different now. Is you don't really need
Correct.
to worry about that, because the LLM can
It's not
intermediate
at the it's not at the token level,
out
right?
at the
It's whenever, yeah,
or it's at the token level more so than the semantic level, right? So it's
yeah,
someone could even ask the question in the wrong language or have a misspelling, and the LLM knows what they mean and will give them something that
all right.
matches. Um, so yeah, so I think we're just at the ground floor of figuring out like what are best practices in this world. So, I think I'm taking more time to understand that myself, and trying to understand how these systems are going to best be optimized long term. But the general principle that you can take away is that the tools are going to do their best to give the user a good answer. That's in their best interest, right? That's why these products will thrive, is when people feel that they're getting a good answer. So you want to, just like with Google in a SEO keyword world, be a good citizen, make good, rich content, have a point of view, speak about your niche with authority, put your expertise out there, diversify across multiple channels, and that's all stuff that LLMs eat up. Because AI is great at summary, it's great at writing this kind of generalized content. It's not great at coming up with original ideas. So if you're the
Feed the
source
knowledge
of original
base. Feed the
ideas,
knowledge base, right?
Feed the knowledge base. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly. You
Yeah.
want to be that source that the LLM is like, yeah, I got to check this. And
Yeah.
you can this is a golden opportunity for everyone, every marketer in every field, to actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Kadu, any parting thoughts? We're closing 40 minutes here. How do you want us to wrap up, my friend?
Yeah, no, so this is really fascinating. Just to add on to Ty's, the shortest path for a lot of these newer AI companies to actually bring in that knowledge base is through aggregators of content. So that being Substack as an aggregator, that being Wikipedia, that being so if your content is not in some of these places, or if you're thought leadership or whatever, try to be in there. Even things like Google with Gemini, YouTube is a big source of that as they unleash that. So it's going to be really important to just not have your content on your website, but also have it in a lot of these aggregated places that are going to be, for example, Google or this company's made deals with Substack and some of the others, Reddit, for example, to pull in their information. So they're paying for that data feed. So be on those places and feed your content in there. But we're going to see this play out really, really in an interesting way, given that all of these platforms want you to stay on their properties. They don't have an incentive to send users to your website. So how do you figure out how to get people to your website to go do that call to action to apply or to do all these other things? And the only way you can do that today is paid search or social. So those are the two only things. So organic search, we
Yeah.
see that going down tremendously, but it's going to be really interesting. So if you don't have that in your strategy going forward, paid search and social, you need to start building that muscle right now. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really difficult as the other players are going to be kind of get into the space very fast.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we are approaching 42 minutes here. Ty, you are smart and good, man. Thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thank you
always
for having
lovely to hear how
me.
your brain thinks and process information, and in a way, continue to humanize these advancements that we see in technology. Everybody, generative AI search, it's real. Enjoy it, benefit it, and as we have been saying it, don't abandon the current practices. Just adapt as we think is appropriate, and feed the knowledge base. Thank you, everybody. This is Generation AI, the podcast where we demystify artificial intelligence under the lens of higher education. Artists, you want to say bye?
Till next time, everybody.
Ty, you're the
Gentlemen.
best.